Among various games, especially online ones, we can distinguish one group, probably quite niche, but attracting football fans who want to compete on the level of strategy. Browser football managers, because that's what we're talking about, have a history as distant as the history of the internet. And in this series of films, I will try to bring closer a few, if not a dozen, items that will interest fans of this genre of games. And in this episode, we will discuss one of such games. Matchday 11 is a Norwegian game created in 2018. I know it quite well because I followed it from the beginning when it was just starting out and when there were no player skills, but a general ranking. Currently, I would say that it is a fairly light and clear manager. The game menu is quite intuitive. On the home page, in addition to basic information about the club being run, such as the level of the football academy, schedule, etc., there is also a chat for communication in a given league in the country. In addition, there is a forum, as is usual in such games. On the Tactics Settings page, we have access to the settings of one of 12 formations. And in the Tactics settings, we can set, among other things, the mentality or style of play from ball possession to long ball play. The configuration of the Tactics settings may not be too extensive, but it is sufficient and has an impact on what happens in the match. I rate the match engine as a fairly strong point of the game. One of the important issues I pay attention to is how limited the game functions are without buying any pro accounts, which often occurs in such games. Generally, if buying some add-ons gives a real advantage in the competition, for me it is already disqualifying. In this game, these are purely visual differences. It is true that we do not see table of teams under 23, and this is perhaps the main limitation, but we can set the tactics of the youth team that is under 23, as well as the information on what position in the table it is currently located. It is true that we have some limitations, such as lack of access to additional statistics, the possibility of comparing players, etc., but these are add-ons that do not give a real advantage in the competition. The club's economy is not too complicated. Every now and then we choose one sponsor. We also receive a cash prize for a place in the league, where in the top league it is appropriately higher than the level below. Players can be offered a new contract, but when it expires, it will be automatically extended. We can sign youth players for the team from a pool of local players. You can also send a scout to them to get to know their potential, or send scouts to each continent or a given region and try to find a future talented player there. The level of the academy will determine what chances we have for signing if other clubs applied for a youth player at the same time. The level of the academy also has a certain impact on the speed of training in the junior team. In general, I rate the academy system and the scouts who also have their skills as quite well balanced. There is no level of training pitches or coaches, so it is not overly developed. The level designations of youth players are marked as letters, where the letter A is the best, up to the letter H. Each letter corresponds to a certain range in the range from number 1 to number 20, and in order to try to get to know this potential expressed as a number, you need to send a scout to a given youth player. Scouts are able to provide this potential for error, depending on the player's assessment skills. There is no youth draw here, as is usually the case. In my opinion, such a scouting system is quite well thought out and gives quite large strategic possibilities for building a youth team, that is. Under 23. In this game, we run teams with real-world names. We can change the team by applying for a given club if it is without a manager. When someone else applies for a given team, we have to count on luck that we will be chosen. In this way, we can build the strength of one team or go down in history in many clubs. The league and cup system is also similar to that of the real world. We have, for example, a national cup, a European cup, and a Champions League for all continents, where the champions on their continent can also compete in separate intercontinental cups. There is also a national coefficient depending on the results in the cups. In addition to the transfer list, there is also a unique possibility of sending a player on loan and looking for reinforcements or supplementing the squad on a loan basis. When it comes to playability, Est is a rather intimate game, which is not necessarily a disadvantage. You may like the attention to detail, such as the visible history of which clubs a given manager has managed, or the list of managers who have managed a given club. When it comes to disadvantages, you can mention the lack of national teams. But that is the only thing I miss in this game, which seems to be quite complete. Summarizing this first game on the channel, I can give individual ratings. Visually 8 out of 10. Game engine 8 out of 10. Junior system 7 out of 10. The impact of paid add-ons on the competition is insignificant, and overall I rate the game 7 out of 10. The last update of the game was over a year ago, but it's a game I can recommend.